themselves, there would be no reason for sexual reproduction. So most of the time, they actually have a block to self-fertilization, where if pollen from the own plant lands on the stigma, that you don't get any fertilization. A whole series of like molecular events trigger, which makes like nothing happen. So that way, you have to like basically have distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I whispered.
Some plants do not have blocks to self-fertilization, but most do. It just means that you're not going to get any seed formation. I mean, the plant is going to grow because of the meristem regions that we studied before, just through cell division. But you're not going to get any baby plants unless you have another plant. Yeah. And actually, some flowers, we didn't get to like the incomplete flower thing yet. Some only have female parts. There's certain species where some have male parts and some have female parts. And then you need, like if you have a tree like that, then you have to have a matching tree of the opposite sex if you're going to have seeds.
So if I want to grow my own tomatoes, I have to have at least 2 plants.
Well, if you already have the plant will grow fine. Oh, you're right. You won't get fertilization, so you won't get tomato formation.
So I have to have
Yellow thing.
I was going to attach the carry to
Yeah.
the grower and they finish it.
I guess you need to get two. I don't know that much about tomatoes, whether they can self-fertilize or not.
Self-fertilize. Imagine it's human.
Don't know. I would have to like look at all the individuals.
Very like
that they
parasitic
do.
I like
plants
the
around
world
them.
would
That's
be
why
a
they
much
grow
more
alone
happy
because they
place.
suck all the water out from the ground. So that's why they don't grow right. That's why they grow by themselves.
What? Whoa, that was on video.
Okay, receptacle is right here. It's actually the part that the flower is attached to.
And then the
Pedicle is the stalk, basically, that's coming off of the, I shouldn't say the stalk, it's coming off of the stalk. Okay. All right, petals. What are these?
Oh, good one.
They really should be turned around like that. Sepals. And then we have the stamen, right? And what's this part of the stamen? Anther. And what's inside the anther? Pollen grain, which is the male humidifier, okay? And then this is the filament, which holds the anthers up. Okay? This whole thing is the
Carpal or pistol.
carpal or pistil. This is the stigma.
Because
style.
Ovule. Okay, we're good. And inside the ovary is the embryo sac, which is the name of the
Female
female humidifier. So there's just like a lot of that vocabulary. Yeah.
So, do all plants have both?
No. So
what
let's talk about that.
Yeah, so they'll have one or the other, and that makes it.
No, some have both.
Can they fertilize themselves?
Wow.
Yeah.
Some people are focusing a little too much on the pizza.
Let's rewind the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're gonna watch the video. Okay. A complete flower has everything. Flowers, sepals, and male and female reproductive organs. Incomplete flowers are missing something. Sometimes they're basically unisexual, and they only have the male parts, or only the female parts. Sometimes they can be bisexual. That just means they have both parts, but they're missing like the sepals, or they're missing the petals. So, some flowers don't need petals to attract pollinators, particularly if it's a plant that's wind pollinated. Why does it need to be pretty? The wind is just going to blow wherever it blows, and the pollen's going to stick to the stigma. So it's the really pretty petals are the ones that are pollinated by animals, because it attracts birds and bees and all that kind of stuff to it. Okay, so the big thing that, does everybody get like complete versus incomplete? Okay. And then, like I said, some have one sex, some have both sexes, same thing. Yeah.
What about something like cacti?
They get flowers.
They're really pretty flowers.
But, you know, with anything, trees and plants, they don't flower all year round. They only flower based on hormones at a certain time of the year. And it's all coordinated, because it wouldn't make sense if this particular plant flowered and none of its same species flowered at the same time. like, it would be screwed, so to speak, because it doesn't have any pollen to meet up with it. So it's all kind of synchronized by plant when they flower. So cacti flower, but only at a very specific time. So unless you're in the desert at that time.
I guess it would have to be whenever he was going to pollinate them, they would know would be around. It's like,
Yeah, it's all evolutionary, they can't say.
well, no, yeah, but it's like if like the plants flower in the winter,
It's actually pretty big.
because the plants flower in the wintertime, there's no bees.
Right.
So, like,
Would cacti necessarily flower as often?
Is it what?
Cacti, like they grow really slowly, so would they flower as often?
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't want to reproduce, guys. Adaptations, you don't want to reproduce a lot of cactus because, guys, if you had a lot of cactus, they'd compete for water supply. So I don't know how often cactuses, and it's probably different species would be different, but there is a desert plant called the agave, and its other name is the century plant because it hardly ever reproduces. When it does reproduce, this big stalk grows out. The agave looks like aloe. You guys know what an aloe plant is?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Can you open this?
I know that doesn't really look.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Okay?
Right.
In the agave, this giant 6-foot stalk grows out of it, and then it flowers at the top. It puts so much energy into growing that giant stalk with the flowers that it actually kills the original plant. So it basically makes the flowers, it gets pollinated, its seeds get spread, and then it dies.
they're like specific things.
When we were out in San Diego, they had a lot of agaves, and there were hummingbirds. They were flowering at the time, and there were hummingbirds like everywhere on them. So I assume hummingbirds are, at least in that area, their main pollinator.
Wait, that's not the one that smells, is it? The one that they had music in the garden that was
We were actually out in like Sedona in Arizona, and they also had agave, and there were some of them were flowering. It was really cool. But the idea is, guys, with the 6-foot stalk, then the seeds kind of disperse really well from each other, and then they're not competing though with the original plant because it's dead. So it doesn't reproduce that often. Okay, so just want to try to go in order. I think we're good with all the stuff. Any questions about the stuff on the first couple pages?
No.
Okay, so dioecious is where each individual plant, like there's one sex, like male versus female, and monoecious, they're on the same plant.
Oh, exactly.
But
Whoa, they're on the
not
same
flower.
No.
Is that
So like a tree can like do it with its own stuff.
female. Remember how I asked you about that during Christmas? And the ones without the berries are male, and they're usually next to each other.
I think so.
Oh, that makes sense. Wait, so Miss
So the monoecious, guys,
the tree.
monoecious and dioecious both refer to unisexual flowers, but unisexual plants, I guess you would say. But the monoecious, they're both on the same plant. So some flowers are male, some are female, but they're on the same plant. Versus the dioecious, the whole plant is either male or female. And then they have to have, for pollination, they have to have a neighbor somewhere. Okay, next thing is actual fertilization. I have a little section on there just kind of going over how do you create the gametophyte, the female gametophyte, and the male gametophyte. Basically, they're just kind of called spores, which we would call kind of analogous our germ cells that are going to develop into the gametes. So unlike us, what we do is our germ cells, which are just the term for like the cells that are going to become the sperm and the egg, they undergo mitosis first so that we make more germ cells. And then out of each pair of germ cells, one stays a germ cell so we can make more, and then one undergoes meiosis. And I know we haven't done meiosis yet, but that divides the DNA in half. So the sperm is haploid, it only has half the DNA of a normal cell. They actually do it reverse. They undergo meiosis first and then undergo mitosis. So for instance, they have cells in the anthers that are going to undergo meiosis and become haploid, have half the DNA. Then those cells undergo mitosis and actually form the gametophyte with a multicellular pollen grain. Okay? So I know it's confusing with all that.